wrapping around on the stage. Look, there's no, I mean, well, technically there's one floating platform that moves around, but that is all you got.
And for Mini and Goosey taking the early weapon lead over the red team. Addymestic finally picking up that spawn sword. Gets a nice neutral light onto M for Mini, but it's just back and forth between the two teams. M for Mini really not taking a whole lot of damage. Goosey not even caring who he's hitting, beating out both the red team and his teammate there.
You realize he finished that combo on his teammate.
Yeah, he's done more damage to M for Mini than the red team has. M for Mini with a nice flame umbrella to protect himself and his teammate there from the falling teardrop of Cake. Addymestic with the neutral light, just getting extra damage onto Goosey. Goosey's solo defense. Any of the blue team members could die in a second. Side air connects onto Goosey. Goosey just barely living, but he gets back to the ground.
He makes his way back to the stage.
Oh, he eats
Cake
the side
catches
sig.
him with the charged up side sig. And for Mini finding his own KO with the down sig as soon as he picks up those guitars, but Addymestic with a quick revenge kill, taking him off on the right, and Addymestic still on his first stock. The last one to survive the mess for at least a couple seconds is gonna be the one to move out back into the stage lastly. And that is gonna be Cake and Addymestic collapsing on the blue team right now. M for Mini taking a lot of damage. Goosey getting pushed off onto the right side. And Addymestic trying to make that approach, that coach pitch setup as he does the dash in to the ground
the neutral
stomp.
sig from Cake coming out underneath. Goosey gonna kill him in that sky ceiling. Very quick kill coming out from the red team. Gonna give them that advantage, and the follow-up neutral light from Cake. M for Mini able to interrupt the recovery, but Addymestic's got a recovery underneath. That is why you can use your teammate in twos. If your combo doesn't work out, hey, maybe your teammates will, and that ends up giving the red team a significant advantage over the blue team, and they are just widening this gap, building more and more damage on top of the blue team.
And for Mini coming in, grouping up with his teammate Goosey, but getting caught as he tries to get behind Addymestic to set up for that black hole combination. You see Goosey and M for Mini really trying to go for that team setup, but Cake and Addymestic keep disrupting those plans. It might be a time to change it up a little bit. M for Mini getting the one kill.
Another one.
Goosey with the follow-up, and there's no way for him to get back, but Goosey and M for Mini finally finding those KOs. It might not help them too much as they are very deep in that damage.
I like what Addymestic did there. So he knew he was out of utility. And in ones, once you're out of utility, you just do the ground pound so that you fall to your death and you respawn faster. In this situation, in twos, that's so incredibly effective because he was able to respawn faster and make sure that he wasn't leaving Cake in a power play for too long. That was so smart from Addymestic. The blue team is gonna fall soon. Goosey left in the 1v2 against Addymestic and Cake.
Side air from Cake, looking for another one. Playing that edge game. The side air coming out. Goosey going for the opportunity play. Getting that down air twice in a row, but Addymestic with the weapon throw.
Just drops a hammer on his head. That's what you need, a hard hat for situations like that. That's why this is a construction zone. You got to have that hard hat.
Gadget.
Yeah, that's the.
You pick up
you
the hard
can't
hat?
get dropped. You can't have weapons drop on your head. Unfortunately, that means Goosey and Mini are going to lose game one. Addymestic and Cake, such a powerhouse team. Going to go right on into game two. What is the map pick going to be? Mammoth, I mean, it wasn't really the map that ended up being the pitfall of M for Mini and Goosey, so I wouldn't be surprised if they left it on the field. But at the same time, with how well Addymestic and Cake did, I also wouldn't be surprised if M for Mini were like, nah, I just don't even want to play on that map.
Oh, we'll see what happens here. What bands they end up going with. I will say right now, though, I will always like seeing the Miami Dome in 2v2 because it's so small. It makes every game just that more crazy and intense. But they are going to be banning it out. So that is already out of the
they're
cards.
getting rid of the kind of the closer, smaller maps. They want a little bit more breathing room. That's what looks like it's on the field right now. Twilight, Blackguard, and Shipwreck are all kind of larger area to play with maps. And for Mini, we also see he's swapping off the Ragnar, going to be going over to this Bryn. Like I had said previously, if things weren't really working out for M for Mini and Goosey, they're going to switch it up and bring out some different Axe Legends. Twilight and Shipwreck still on the field. I almost want to see Addy go with the Shipwreck because they have some really solid edgeguard game as a team, but instead they're going to be going to Twilight, and there you see it. Cake and Addymestic versus M for Mini and Goosey, Hattori, Bodvar, Bryn, and Jala.
Game number 2 getting started off right now. Addymestic and Cake versus Goosey and M for Mini. Two of the biggest teams here in this tournament, and we got M for Mini and Cake starting off with the weapons immediately. The spears, the long-range spacing sticks of stabbing, I guess you could call it. I don't know. Cake and everyone else getting their weapons set, and the controlled chaos begins.
Side sig connects from Goosey on the back of Addymestic. Damage being done in all directions. Goosey hard challenging the smoke cloud from Cake and winning out. Shoves him off the map, but Addymestic immediate rotation for the relief to help out Cake. Cake is currently unarmed, and he doesn't even care, hitting every single blue team member. But Goosey with the big spinning axe just chops in all directions, and Addy gets sent flying. That one will finish him off.
Down air, that's the reverse down air into weapon throw, and that is going to confirm a clean kill from Mini. And take that quick advantage. Goosey and Mini close to that blast zone, though, and that can prove very dangerous. So they maneuver back to, there's not a cow joke, maneuvering back to the center of the stage.
Sorry, no Taros is in this one, unfortunately.
I do wish.
But Goosey is getting beaten on. He is going to be the only one holding on to the stocks for his team here. He has just that slight advantage, but I like what I was seeing from the blue team. Just they're playing this really good follow-up game. They're not putting too much space between each other. They have this big map to work with, but it just means more room for them to move around as a pod, as this teammate, and they're playing this follow-up game so incredibly well, and it's one of the reasons why they have the lead for just a second. It is going to be the equalizer from Cake with that ground pound. Addymestic with a fake out ground pound, but he hits his teammate, fakes out the wrong person, leads to his teammate's death, and that is going to give the stock advantage. For a second, Cake finishes off Mini.
Don't need a weapon to find that KO. The down air is perfectly fine, but the recovery off the top is going to take out a stock from Addymestic as he now makes his way back to the stage. Goosey and Mini doing a good job holding onto their stocks and their damage thresholds. Cake trying to make something work here in the center as Addymestic comes in for the assist, and Mini coming in to disrupt the team cohesion between Addymestic and Cake, but that is an incredibly difficult task to accomplish as Cake makes his way back to the stage. Goosey and Mini trying to collapse, but Cake is staying too high, trying to stay away from that grounded black hole zone that Mini and Goosey are setting up, and there it is. Look at that.
The interrupt from Cake. That was the longest windup for the biggest swing, and Cake just stopped that final swing there.
That would have been devastating if they were able to get that finished.
Mini, though, falls to his death, and it's left to Goosey in the 1v2. We saw Blue do the 1v2 earlier on in the day. Can Goosey do the same? Nice recovery underneath Addymestic. He's got some big swinging hits. If he can get them onto either of the red team members, could lead to the death, could leave him in a 1v1, and he's got that stock advantage to work with. But he's got to be careful, make sure he doesn't lose this stock too soon. Recovery underneath, and it's all left to Cake in the 1v1. Cake did well for himself in the 1v1 yesterday, so he can't give up. He knows how well he can play in this 1v1, but Goosey has a second stock behind this one.
And Cake is already in the red, so he's going to have to pull through an entire stock after he takes this one out. This is a very difficult
Where's
position.
that spear?
He's a magician. He just made it disappear.
Where'd it go?
And there's the KO, finally on a Goosey, putting him into his last stock. But is it too little too late? Cake in the red. If he lets Goosey get an inch, it's going to count for a mile in this right now, because that is going to give them the win here in game number 2 and send it to a game number 3. But Goosey right now just trying to play carefully, not give up too much damage to Cake.
Oh,
there
that
it is.
recovery is it, and that means Mini are going to be getting, and Goosey are going to be getting that game 3. Really good stuff coming out for them. Goosey really putting out this damage with this Brawlhalla. This is looking like the numbers that we see from Goosey and Mini. Goosey just puts out damage. We'll see if they decide to change up even more. They had a decent enough game plan. It worked out for them in game 2. Maybe they're just going to try to clean it up just a little bit more, keep Mini alive a little bit longer, or go for some stronger follow-ups. But you see Cake immediately getting rid of Twilight, getting rid of these larger maps. Likely we'll see Shipwreck Band. Yeah, and now it's back to these closer maps, Mammoth, Great Hall, and Miami Dome. Smaller area to play with. Great Hall, arguably one of the bigger of the 3, but it also has this kind of ability to shove people into that center stage, into that main stage, because of those platforms.
Waiting for the map selection to take place. Mammoth, Great Hall, or Miami Dome left on the table. At this point, I think most people pick Miami Dome because they know They kind of treat it kind of like a grumpy temple. It's small, you know, it's kind of, there's a lot of uncertainty on that map. So unless you're very confident going into a small map in a 2v2 scenario like this and give up a lot of space where you're potentially going to hit your opponent a lot, I think they know that a lot of people might not opt to play that map.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, so when you leave Miami on the field, it's one of those maps where it's almost kind of like a gimme ban where not too many players are confident in picking that map. So almost out of instinct, players will just not pick that map because they just don't want to go for that sort of 50-50.
Yeah, because you don't want to spend half the time hitting your opponent or having to worry about being on the wall most of the time because there's so little floor space. Not to say that it's a bad 2v2 map, because it's not. It's just
very different. It is a very different map to play with, and unless you have a game plan for it, you are going to find trouble. But we do see Addymestic and Cake with their own game plan for Great Hall, bouncing the blue team members between them, just making this death sandwich in the middle of the map. And that's what I was talking about with Great Hall. Kind of forces players down onto this main stage area, and that is to the red team's advantage.
This is the Addymestic Cake team cohesion that I am so used to seeing, where they come in clutch for one another, follow-ups that you know are unspoken between the two. They just know that these things are going to happen, know where to put themselves, and how to follow up for their teammate.
Goosey had the neutral, and M4Mini was looking for that follow-up. He had the side light, would have likely led to a side air to finish off Cake just to get him closer to that kill box, but Cake did not get caught by that side light and is instead going to be holding on to this first stock. Goosey, the first one to fall for the blue team, but everybody is close behind. Anybody else could be falling in just a second. There it is, M4Mini with the neutral sig, Goosey with the recovery, and that is going to give the blue team the slightest of advantage over the red team. M4Mini's really got to hold on to this stock.
M4Mini doing his best to hold on to it, but taking damage from Goosey is probably the best thing he can hope for right now, honestly. He's going to be taking less damage and less force from Goosey, so if anyone's going to be hitting him, it should be M4Mini. Cake and Addymestic trying to collapse into the center. Addymestic trying to get the dash neutral light onto Goosey to try to take him out. Ooh, signature, they're really hunting right now.
Off-team black hole. Goosey, or sorry, M4Mini and Addymestic were just black holing both of their teammates inside of that. Lots of damage has been done. Goosey, though, going to be falling down to his final stock here in Game 3. M4Mini finally losing his first stock. So even though the stocks were even for a second, it is now in the advantage of the red team.
Cake making his approach onto the blue team. M4Mini trying to collapse onto the other side of this red team and try to force a black hole situation potentially. M4Mini getting a lot of damage, though. The KO coming from Goosey onto Addymestic is going to even up these stocks a little bit more, as Cake is looking to lose his stock soon, potentially rather than later.
M4Mini looking for this finisher onto Cake. Cake's so incredibly damaged, but M4Mini knows he can't overcommit onto it, as Goosey is already close to that kill percent. Goosey going deep for Cake, ends up hitting a recovery from low, so it's not going to be finishing off Cake, but Goosey, he is in such a dangerous spot. Might see a complete reversal of the last game where Goosey had to do the 1v2 with 2 stocks. M4Mini might have to be the one, but nice follow-ups from the blue team, trying to give them as much of an advantage as possible as they get into those final stocks. The down airs, the ground pouts come out on the bottom left of the map.
Addymestic looking for that weapon to pick up. He finds the hammer in the middle. M4Mini and Goosey getting picked up by that stop. M4Mini not getting taken out, though, as he's the only one who got hit by that side air. M4Mini and Goosey trying to collapse onto Addymestic right now. He is in the red, forcing that 2v1. There it is. And the follow-up from Cake to force the 1v1 as well. M4Mini in his second stock, though. So Cake has to find that quick KO onto Mini. He's not going to lose a lot of damage in that double sidelight gravity canceled. Very interesting combination.
Read. You don't see that often. Usually it's the sidelight setup for some sort of downlight read, but M4Mini with a big read, sidelight into gravity cancel sidelight in the 1v1. Cake's got a lot more health to work with than he did in the last game, but it's M4Mini with a fresh stock and an axe that chunks so incredibly hard.
I think we did see this yesterday, did we not? Did Cake end up taking this? I think he did. M4Mini coming in right now with the axe play. Going to get a little bit of damage by Cake, but right now Cake in the red is going to be put in a very precarious position. M4Mini with the neutral sig. Not winning it this time.